Welcome to the Feminist Exec, the podcast where women in leadership share their stories, challenges, and triumphs. I'm your host, KP, and together we'll dive into the real talk behind breaking barriers, leading with impact, and redefining success on our own terms. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and equipped to take your leadership to the next level. This is the Feminist Exec. Let's forge your future. Welcome to the Feminist Exec podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest with me, Natalia Gerasina. Natalia is a logistics technology expert. She's worked with companies like DB Schenker across multiple different countries. Right now, she's sitting in Finland, but I know you're making a move to Austria soon. So welcome, Natalia. We'll talk about what you've been doing lately around starting your own company and writing your own story. So super excited to get into the conversation today.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's get right into it. I know you've been working in logistics since about 2006, working across Russia, Finland, and Germany. What initially drew you to this field, and how has your global experience shaped your professional identity?
That's a good question. And I must admit that it was an accident, happy accident. I think it was back in 2006 when I decided that the university I chose was not really something that I would like to pursue. So I had to find a job. And the first job I thought of was just like, I want to try logistics because it seems to be dynamic and it's easy to get in. And it turned out it's easy to get in, but it's difficult to get out. So I got really stuck and I couldn't be more happy about this because I genuinely enjoy the dynamics of the industry. The challenges. What I don't like is maybe moving too slow, but we are moving into the right direction in the latest years. So I think I find myself right industry and I'm in the right place right now. And I'm happy to be an independent player who has more opportunities to actually support the industry rather than just one player.
I want to unpack a little bit of what you just said, because there's a few things. One, once you're in supply chain, you never get out. I'm the same way, right? And I've talked to a bunch of people that have done the same thing, and it's amazing how many people accidentally get into supply chain as well. But one of the things that you said to me the other day was one of the reasons why you wanted to start your own business. So you founded your own business, Gerasina Limited, and that's a significant shift in what you're doing from a career perspective. And you were saying, you're not limited to one company. Tell me a little bit more about why you decided to make that leap of faith, take the entrepreneurial journey, and what challenges have you been facing during this transition?
I think I don't have a simple answer for that. Every entrepreneur probably knows that every story, every journey is unique. And at the same time, we face the similar challenges. So to start with why I chose to go independent, I didn't plan it for too long, but when I found myself in the situation when I needed to decide whether I want to proceed with employment or to start my own business, to me, the decision was quite simple because I paused and I looked back, all the experience I gained, all the people I met, and all the projects I've been working on. To me, it seems like I cannot transfer it to the next job if I'm going to be a salesperson or a project manager in one company only. So I wanted to create more meaning. And I think that's why this decision was so easy for me to make, because I grew as a professional from doing something to sharing something. And this is the most meaningful part of this entrepreneurial journey.
Thinking about where you are in your career, from learning all of these things and then being able to get to a point where you want to share them with others, solve challenges with other people across many different countries and, genders and ages and projects. As you've been learning and are transitioning into this kind of sharing side of your career, how has mentorship and networking in your career development helped you? You mentioned meeting with a bunch of people. I know networking is one of your strong suits, and building strong networks both online but in person. Tell me a little bit more about how networking and mentorship has influenced your career.
Well, I must say this is the most crucial part of my success, of our industry progress. And I must admit that I wouldn't be able to build this network if people wouldn't be collaborative. So it's a two-way road. So you always meet each other halfway. And I owe a lot to my network and a lot to my mentors who probably didn't even know that they were my mentors, because I tend to learn from everything, from every discussion I have, from every interaction, from every project I work on or every situation I face. And just observing people or seeing how they manage risks, how they manage difficult situations, it helped me to develop as a professional and also as a person, because I think these two things come hand in hand. If you don't understand yourself, you probably cannot understand others that well. So like the more you learn about your strengths and weaknesses, the better leader you become and the better team player you become. So I cannot separate those from one another, if you know what I mean.
That's really interesting how if the more you know about yourself, the more you know about others, and that is a circle that feeds itself, if you will. So you get continual learnings about yourself and then others, and you continue to build on that. One of the things that you said that was really interesting is you mentioned how some of your mentors didn't even realize that they were your mentors. Tell me a little bit more about how that happened and what that means to you.
Well, how that happened by accident, I think, like anything else in this industry, at least from my perspective. So I just like when I was still searching my place in the industry and was trying to understand whether I want to become an expert or am I better at strategy, I think I just like observed some of the senior leaders and I saw how complex their day-to-day tasks are. How much is on their plate. And I realized that I'm much better at this than I am with a single task. And that's how I made them my mentors. I was just seeing how they handle situations and all the interactions we had. I got tons of support from each of them without them even knowing how much I adore them. I think later in my career, I learned how to express appreciation, but back at that moment, it was more about quiet learning and observing and absorbing this information and experience. And later on, I think I learned how to combine both learning and also sharing the knowledge and also expressing gratitude.
There's so much there. So, do you really think that their ability to foster an inclusive and supportive environment helped you be able to learn from them better and feel like you were more comfortable in those types of environments?
I would say yes, absolutely. But of course, I mean, it's more complex. So they fostered this environment where I felt free to go and ask questions. And I knew that if I didn't get answers in this place, then there will be another place that will provide answers. And of course, it was up to me to go and ask those questions because that's another part. You know, I think like our success, it depends on both the environment we are in and also our inner drive and our ability to communicate our needs and our curiosity.
So, how do you understand yourself a little bit better and learn how to communicate with others? What are some of the things that you've done to do that for yourself?
I think that was the part what I learned the best from the poor management, when I didn't get answers, when I didn't get support, when I was just told to do what it's told. That's where I learned that that's not kind of environment I want to create to my team. And that's definitely not something that I want to see in the industry in general. And there is always this question like, do you want to step in and to actually address the issue of poor management, or do you want to just walk away? And to me, it's still always like I would like to address it because it's our responsibility to shape the environment we work in. Because starting with one small department, then go into the corporate level, then go into the country level and the whole industry and like multiple organizations. I think this is something that we do not talk enough about. It's like not too much drama, but still addressing the issue so we have an opportunity to work on it.
I think that's so critical right there. The small changes make such a big impact. Instead of saying, oh, I have a bad manager, I'm just going to leave, or, oh, there's a problem with this project, I'm just going to, remove myself from it. Having the courage and the ability to say, it's business. Let's have a discussion about what's going wrong and let's fix it. Because if you don't fix it, it continues to fester and continues patterns of behavior. That's really cool to think about, like creating the small changes that ultimately turn into big changes. So that leads me to my next question about how do you think about creating inclusive environments? What's your leadership style to be able to be a catalyst for that change?
I would say finding balance perhaps is the most important, and balance between different things, like for instance, giving the team structure and guidance while still allowing them to be creative and form this ecosystem for each project, because I'm not the line manager for one specific team. I lead different teams, and that's what makes it unique, because you never know, like even in the same setup, those same people might act differently, but every time when you get a new team, you cannot try to apply standard methods to unique people. So I try to find this balance between being there to facilitate their work, but at the same time, not to dismiss their ability to lead themselves. So that's how they learn not only like to deliver the project, but they also develop as professionals and as people. I think oftentimes it also fosters human relationships.
Human relationships are so important. I think one of the key things around leadership that I kind of gleaned from what you just said is the success of the team is often up to the individual, and what you're doing is helping them become better professionals and better individuals. You don't have to do everything for them. In fact, you shouldn't, but you can help them become better versions of themselves. That's really powerful.
Actually, I'm glad that you touched this, that I shouldn't be doing everything on my own, because I think that was like the biggest learning in my career. Ever since I was a kid, I was taught that it's your responsibility to do everything that you're told, and you need to carry on no matter how many people around you have. You cannot trust that they do everything properly, so you need to double check. And it took me years to shift the perspective. And now I see that what I was taught is actually fostering micromanagement culture, and it's not something I want to contribute to or I would like to work in. So instead, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to delegate tasks not only for the delegation's sake, but to find people who would be the best for it, so they could learn, so they would know that I trust them enough to perform this task. So they would know that I listen to them if they want to do this, if they're ready to do this, if they need my guidance, or are they ready to go and fly by themselves. So this is, I think, the most crucial part. So doing everything on my own is not a noble act. It's, I think it's a part of the teaching process and a part of the learning process for myself.
That's so fascinating to think about, kind of your journey to figure that out. And so how do you think your upbringing and your culture impacted how you approached answering questions, your leadership style, and then how did you figure out that doing everything on your own wasn't the best way to do it? How did you get from where you were when you started to where you are now?
Well, I can say that it didn't come one day, so I didn't wake up a good leader. It took years of mistakes and misunderstandings, and I learned from every failure. But also, I think daring to ask or daring to admit that I don't know how to do this, or I don't have an answer to that question, that created this collaborative culture and this collaborative spirit in me. So because now I build my whole business around collaboration. So it's not only about benefiting my own business through collaboration, but also what others can work on together and how it can contribute to a specific project or to the whole industry. Who knows?
That's amazing. One of the things that you told me as we were discussing this podcast is that you're late diagnosed neurodivergent. So there's a lot to discuss there, I think, because that's becoming more and more of a trend. You said, everybody is being diagnosed with something. Some of it has to do with the more awareness and the fact that women are just not diagnosed at rates that boys are in our childhood. Can you tell me a little bit more about your journey with neurodiversity and how that's impacted your career?
Yeah, as you said that we can talk hours about this. And for too long, I think I've been quiet about this because I knew that I didn't fit into specific boxes. And I thought that I didn't need the diagnosis, to know that I'm different. But somehow I reached the point that I needed this clarity for myself, because I reached this, personal development point where I needed to justify what decisions I made and why I made them. Were they my decisions, or were they guided by some brain chemistry mismatch? So getting diagnosed got me this clarity, and it actually took me to the next point of questioning everything and accepting myself. Like knowing that, for instance, me moving from one country to another and sometimes too quickly, maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was just, low dopamine levels. And when normal people, probably that's enough for them to check small to-do lists. And to me, it's like, okay, I need to move to another country. Done. Dopamine levels high. Then move to another country. Done. And again. So now I gave myself an ability to pause and to understand, is the decision I'm about to make my own? Is it rational? Or is it guided, by the brain chemistry? And I think we don't talk enough about it in workplaces because, as you mentioned, it's becoming a trend. Everyone, like right now, everyone has symptoms, but it doesn't mean that they're neurodivergent because it's something that you're born with. But still, I think we need to respect this diversity because all people are different and everyone needs different environment to bloom, like flowers. We don't blame our plants if it dies. Like my plant just died on the balcony and it was purely my fault because it was 0 degrees. Yeah. So I think we do the same with people. We put them in the wrong positions without asking where they're really good at. And I think when we talk about leadership, it also is our responsibility to recognize these traits in people because, as you mentioned, that many women are not even diagnosed and many people don't even know that they have specific conditions because they assume that this is their default. Maybe they're not working too hard. So they accept that they're not like others, but they don't have this, documentation that is just a different setup. It's different software. We have iPhones and Androids and we do not compare them because they're different. So I think we should not compare people because they're different. And creating this inclusive environment where we recognize different traits and where we utilize them, to get the best, because people who are performing well, they're thriving. An organization where everyone is in the right place is also thriving. I think it's like, it sounds easy, put the right people into right places, but I think raising awareness is the first step.
100%. I love that analogy of the difference between an Android and an iPhone, where the majority of the world is on one operating system, and there's a large portion of us that are on a different operating system, but we don't know we're on a different operating system until we go through the process. And I myself am neurodivergent, late diagnosed, and to your point, I experienced some of the same things that you did, which was I started to realize what was going on with my brain chemistry versus what was actually my intention. So slowing down and being able to recognize that not only in myself, but in others, as you said, being a leader is recognizing those traits or those tendencies in other people and giving them the right tools and the space for them to become the best versions of themselves because their brain chemistry is also different. So I think that's such a critical and under talked about aspect of management is knowing those different details between people. I was joking with someone earlier about some days we just have bad brain days, days where our brains are just not running on all cylinders. And so maybe we need to do a different type of a project that day or go on a couple more walks. And that's different than maybe somebody else who can power through it in a different way. So
yes.
I think it's totally under talked about and raising awareness about it, particularly in women and even older generations. As you said, being late diagnosed, I think there's a whole population of people that kind of missed the diagnosis in their childhood and early teens and don't realize that this is what they've been living with their entire lives.
Yeah. That's true. And I think why it's important, especially for women, because of addition of the hormonal fluctuations. So you don't know if you wake up and you cannot put yourself together at all. Or other days you hyper focus on everything and you get everything that you've been postponing for a past month. So this is also should be considered not as just like a power of will or discipline, because I try to convince myself if I have enough discipline, then I'm going to succeed at a XYZ. But I did not. And I kept trying, but it didn't bring different results. So I started to understand, okay, maybe I started this task on the wrong day. And then it appeared to be true. So learning about yourself, again, learning how to communicate it, like expressing that today you cannot participate in this meeting, but next week you will deliver the whole project. This is also important to create this, balanced environment when there is enough flexibility while still the whole organization is staying on track. Because I think it's like, parenthood. Like if you have 3 different families, Every family's goal like to raise children into adults who can make it on their own. But they all do it differently. One family thinks that education is the most important. Another family thinks that working hard is the most important. And then third family thinks that like children are growing like grass, they will make it. And all three of them will make adults, but different ways. So it's also like how you reach the goal should not be that crucial. So if the organization has the goal of improving revenue or becoming an industry leader, you should not limit it too much of how to achieve this goal. Of course, it must be aligned, because I talk a lot about, aligning strategy with execution. And top down is not always realistic approach. So again, meet me halfway. Like when planning, ask operational sites, is it even possible? Or when planning a IT rollout, ask IT, is it possible? Is it technically, doable? And things like this. So I think reaching the goal is one thing. How you reach the goal is different. So given flexibility.
I want to go back to one little thing that you said, which is will and determination, because you just said how you get there, it doesn't matter. That you get there is what matters. And what I've observed, and I'd love to dive deeper into this, is that a lot of this will and determination or habit stacking and, every day is the same and the 5 a.m. routine is based off of a male mindset and a male hormone system and journey and the culture, right? So every day is the same. And you just mentioned how women, you wake up one day and it's completely different feeling than how you feel the next week. And it doesn't have anything to do with your will and your determination. It has to do with your chemistry and your biology. Where I'm going with this is, can you tell me a little bit more about how you feel women are challenged in this industry or in your experience because of some of those key differences in how we approach, the expectation to be exactly the same every single day versus, neurodiversity plus being a woman on top of it?
Yeah, I think I would say that I partially agree that, yes, this world and especially our industry is created by men and for men. But I would say that women put more pressure on women. At least that's how I felt. I never heard from a man saying just like, put yourself together, you need to be sharp always. I heard that from other women. Also, you cannot afford making mistake. You need to double check before you send this email. And things like this. I think that's why I love what you are doing here with this podcast and with your activities in general, like lifting each other up, bringing women together to support each other, to facilitate mutual growth. Because what I experienced in my career in this male-dominated industry, that women bring each other down way too often. And I personally would like to change it. And I hope that I'm doing a lot towards changing it. Not limiting ourselves. So it all starts within. If you're insecure, you will never lead by example the team of young girls who just starting their careers. And we truly want to make our industry attractive for girls and boys, those who still are in school and exploring, okay, what I'm going to do next, what, majors I'm going to choose or anything. And we make it this way that girls always know that they need to work harder, although in a matter of fact they don't, because we all are different, but we contribute in a different way, and we don't need to work harder than men. We need to know ourselves and trust ourselves instead of limiting and putting ourselves into this cage of expectations, because I never heard from a man that, I thought you would be wearing high heels or opposite the sneakers.
Yeah.
But I heard lots of comments from other women, especially elder women. And I do understand because their career path was maybe more difficult. So thanks to them, it's easier for me. But on the other hand, it's coming from within. If you are unapologetic about being yourself, being a woman, then everyone should accept it, men and women, and like any organization, it should not be even a question. Can you do this? Can you ask this way? Can you wear this? And of course, I'm talking about appropriate thing, but they consider both men and women. So I wouldn't expect, to see the CEO in flip-flops and shorts,
Except in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
yes,
there.
of course, but that would be appropriate.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so interesting and something we don't
Yeah.
talk enough about, particularly as women, woman on woman crime, if you will. Like we are harder on each other than we are on our male colleagues, and they are on us a lot of times, where there's this mindset that there's only one seat at the boardroom table for one woman. And so we're competing with each other with this scarcity mindset versus creating more seats at the table for more women. I think it's so powerful. You talk about girls and the attractiveness of the industry, particularly in logistics and technology, and creating environments where they feel like they're welcome. Because I've seen a few videos and a few comments of you haven't seen drama until you've worked with an older woman, and older women saying you haven't seen drama until you've worked with younger women.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that should be the focus, right? You know, it should be the focus to lift each other up and be each other's champions, because otherwise we're fighting over scraps when we should be fighting to have a piece of the pie, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's how we foster this, inclusive environment by not focusing on how many women or men we want, but what are our goals and who are the best for these goals. And I think that takes us to a different level a little bit, not talking about, genders, but talking about a holistic approach in leading organization in general. Like what organization wants to achieve? Is it only money? If yes, well, then you can keep all your men in the board, and not change anything. But if you want to become the industry leader, if you want to set the pace, to other companies, or if you want to attract young talent, because they're picky, they're really picky.
They
If they
are.
don't feel the vibe, they will not gonna work there.
Very true.
Yeah, so that's why I think like creating this holistic approach towards treating the organization, towards setting the goals. Do we want to become? It's like a human being. Do you want just function, eat and sleep, or do you want to live your life a full? And the same with organization. And when our goal is, to be that multifaceted company, then we will attract right people. And then there will be a balance between men and women in right positions and in right ratio.
I think that's so important because statistically, they show that if you have women on the boards, they're more profitable companies. They attract the younger talent. Talent stays around longer. I know there's a lot of discussion about representation, and being able to see yourself in those roles is really important for building a company culture and moving to the next level.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there anything from an advice perspective that you would give to young women and girls early on their career aspiring to leadership positions, both in the logistics and supply chain or in tech in general?
Yeah. I think I've been given too many advices and I never listened to any of them. So I'll give one main advice. Listen to yourself and know who you are. And while considering and recognizing the needs of others, never compromise your values, because your values will take you to the right place and will help you to surround yourself with the right people and will lead you to the right industry. And I'm really happy to see the change because I am considering myself lucky to be surrounded by people I have in my network, and especially going on trade shows and, meeting them all at once. It reminds me how much I love what I'm doing, because it's not only about delivering the project, it's also about getting to know people, how they live, how they lead, and what's their goals and what they're doing, in their free time, because it's all connected. So I would say being authentic is the most important thing in life and in a professional life. So I would say to every girl that considers especially male-dominated industry, be yourself, be unapologetic about this, and ask questions, stay curious. That's pretty much it. And I said that I'm not going to give any advice.
Yeah, the be unapologetically yourself is amazing, but also that be human. Like
Yeah.
we are all human beings in this experiment that we call life, right? And treat each other like a human being. That's really powerful.
I agree, yes.
So you did a post recently about how 2024 was about surviving. and 2025 is about thriving. And I know you've got a lot coming up in your career and some changes. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and what's next for Natalia.
There is a lot of things are cooking. Yeah, 2024 was indeed challenging. It was the year when I founded my company, but it was at the time where my studies began and like I lost my job. So I had many decisions to make at the same time. And I don't find like those life situations to be challenging, but decision-making timing, I think that was my challenge. Filling the form at the right time, sending message to the right place. So that created lots of chaos and lots of pressure. And that's one of my strategic points for 2025, to be careful, to seek guidance, to hire advisors, to have an accountant and things like this, again, for not doing everything on my own, because it's also responsibility, to do everything correctly. So I have more strategy for 2025. I plan. And as we talked about the getting diagnosed, and trying not to be that impulsive when it comes to the legal aspects and to moves, to visas and accounting and things like this. But I still try to keep this spontaneity in my life. Like if I decide to go somewhere tomorrow to meet my customer or their business partner, then I will do so. And my move to Austria will bring lots of changes, because this is going to be a temporary move for 1 year only. But again, it will require a new setup. My company will remain in Finland. I will be studying in Austria at the same time. I will be working for my company. And then next, after 1 year, I will be relocating to Germany. And that's going to require a next strategy. And I'm going to think about this next year. But lots of things, and I'm really happy with all of them. It feels a lot sometimes. It feels overwhelming. But again, not doing it all on myself, and having people support, it's incredibly important. Even if they don't do these things for you, but just listen and say, I got that. It's really difficult. Man, that sucks. That's enough. That's really enough, to make my day and to give me some extra energy to keep going. Because that's, I think, the most important in business, that you fall, you get up, you go ahead and try again, or maybe you change the direction. So I think this flexibility and analysis of what's happened, like, was it just a misfortune or was it something systematic? I think it helps me a lot. So I try to look in the future more through the historical data, and also giving myself some mercy and making decisions, even if they're not the best ones.
Give yourself a little grace. So your resilience
Yeah.
is amazing. I know we haven't had a bunch of time to go into everything that you've done and everything that you've faced, but I mean, all things are looking up for you. What are you planning on studying in Austria?
It's going to be project management, business management, still the same. As I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, my first education was a kindergarten teacher. So I went to university to become a geography teacher for the for the third graders. And then I realized it's not the right time for me to become a teacher. I need many teachers myself. So I dropped on the universities. Now I have to take this step back, and it's going to be my bachelor degree. So I'm soon to be 37. I'm totally fine with, having this dance of life, not going straight forward one step at a time, but, just taking different steps, sometimes backwards, sometimes forward. Right now it feels right. And yes, I think it's a great experience to go and live in the fourth country already, because originally from Russia, then 16 years in Finland, 1 year in Germany, now going to Austria. And I like to collect the best of each culture, because there are many negative things about every place I lived on. But what's the point to carry them around? If you don't like them, you can leave, but there is a chance that you can fall in love with the place. That's, I think, I have it with Bavaria in Germany, because I lived in Germany and I moved away, and now I'm truly considering moving back, and this time it's going to be Bavaria. Time will show how life goes, but I have faith, and I think that's the most important.
There's no such thing as a straight line. And it's kind of ironic, though, because even though you're not a kindergarten teacher in geography, you're now transitioning your career career into teaching people and sharing more about logistics technology and project management. And there is no time limit on education. I think being a lifelong learner is kind of key to being successful, right?
Can I share a secret? That
Absolutely.
many projects reminds me of the job in the kindergarten.
We're all children, right? Some of us kind of look like we're older, but we're all kids at heart. I love that. I find myself kind of revisiting a lot of my childhood interests
Yeah.
lately, especially since getting diagnosed and everything, and wondering
Yeah.
why I was obsessed with certain topics. And it's been a fun journey thinking about that. But you're right. We're all kids at heart. So give each other a little bit of grace. And women on women, we're just a bunch of girls on the playground, and let's not pull each other's pigtails, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think like creating this psychological safety is so important, because we all like kids, especially when we are in the new team or in the new organization. There is too much pressure. So let's just play, let's just allow ourselves to be silly sometimes. And, it should not exclude one another, delivering results and, being yourself, or just like feeling relaxed and at ease with yourself and with the teammates.
I love that. And one of my favorite things that shows off your playful attitude is that your cat is your chief marketing officer. So, for those listeners that follow Natalia on LinkedIn, you'll see tons of photos featuring her chief marketing officer joining her for calls and meetings. And we saw her run through the background a little bit, but always keeping fun, playful vibe. I love that.
Yeah.
So much that I've learned from you, Natalia. It's been an amazing conversation. And thank you so much for coming on the Feminist Exec. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And best of luck with your new company and your move and your degree. There's so much that's looking forward to for you in the future. So thank you very much.
No, I must thank you for inviting me and for doing what you're doing, because I saw many of your previous podcast sessions, and that's amazing how you do, and different conversations that you have. They flow so naturally. So you don't have this set in stone mindset that, okay, now all the women must, help each other. No, it's just like it's so natural, because I think feminism is also got twisted over the time. So it now became only, okay, let's get women more jobs. But it's not about this. It's about accepting who we are. And that's just like the whole world will be built on this, diversity, or just like whoever you feel yourself. I mean, I'm proud of being a woman, but I'm totally fine with another girl going and working as a truck driver. So we should not question these things, because every person, men included, like, and every child, they must be given this benefit of doubt that they know what they're doing, and trust in this. And that's how it creates, more creativity to be yourself.
I love that. Somebody asked me this week what feminism is, and I said it's equality. It's treating everybody the same, and showing that everyone can be whatever they want, no matter what they want. If they want to be a housewife, love that for them. If they want to be a truck driver, as you said, love that for them. If they want to be a logistics technology project manager or a CEO, love that for them. Our role, both men and women, and even children, is to give everybody the opportunity to be themselves and be their best
Yeah.
selves. So I love that.
I love it. Yeah.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Feminist Exec. Thank you for tuning in and being part of the conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. A special thank you to our composer, Peter Legault, for the original music. I'm KP, and this is the Feminist Exec. Until next time, keep leading, keep rising, and keep forging your future.